Imagine this. Cities so bright they lit up the night sky, temples rising higher than the trees, and kings who believed their empires would last forever. But history tells us a darker truth. Every empire, no matter how powerful, eventually falls. Babylon, the Maya, the Indus Valley, each one ruled in glory, and each one vanished, leaving only broken stones and whispers in the wind. Tonight, we dive into the mysterious collapse of the world's greatest civilizations and uncover what their ruins are still trying to tell us. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. Cities so bright with torches and golden fire that travelers miles away could see their glow in the night sky. Imagine colossal stone walls rising higher than trees, markets buzzing with voices in languages long forgotten, and rulers who believed their thrones were carved by the hands of gods themselves. These were not just towns or villages. These were empires, vast, unstoppable, eternal, or so they thought. But history whispers something chilling. Every empire, no matter how powerful, carries within it the seeds of its own end. Some collapse with fire and war, others fade silently into dust, swallowed by jungles or deserts. And centuries later, when we stumble upon their ruins, we ask the same haunting question: how could something so great simply vanish? Think about it. These civilizations were once the center of the world. They built temples that scraped the heavens, mapped the stars with frightening accuracy, and ruled millions of people with armies that could crush any foe. And yet, if you visit those places today, you won't hear the roar of armies or the laughter of markets. You'll hear silence, broken stones, shattered statues, and the rustling of winds that carry secrets no one alive can fully explain. This is the riddle of vanished empires. Were they destroyed by natural disasters? Did their rulers fall to greed and corruption? Did enemies break their walls? Or was it something deeper, an invisible force of history that ensures nothing lasts forever? The ruins scattered across the earth tell us fragments of the story. The desert sands of Mesopotamia hide the fallen city of Babylon, once home to wonders of the world. Deep in the jungles of Central America, towering temples of the Maya rise above the trees, though the people who built them disappeared centuries ago. And in the dry plains of South Asia, the mysterious Indus Valley cities lie abandoned, as though their people simply walked away one day and never returned. Imagine being a traveler back then, walking into a city at its peak. You'd see shining palaces, hear music and prayers echoing through marble halls, and watch processions of kings and queens draped in jewels. You'd think to yourself, surely this will last forever. Yet fast forward a few centuries, and all that remains is rubble, half-buried statues, and walls covered in vines. What makes it even more haunting is how sudden these collapses often seemed. One generation might live in comfort and glory, and the next might find themselves fleeing hunger, disease, or invading armies. For the people who lived through it, the fall of their empire wasn't just history, it was tragedy. They saw their homes abandoned, their families scattered, their gods silent. To them, it must have felt like the world itself was ending. And yet, for us today, these vanished empires are windows into mystery. Archaeologists dig into the soil, piecing together fragments of pottery, tools, and bones, trying to tell a story that has no ending written down. Historians debate over causes: famine, drought, rebellion, foreign invaders, or simple human pride. But no single answer ever feels complete. That's what makes these civilizations so fascinating. They remind us that time is both a builder and a destroyer. What we see as eternal is only temporary. What seems indestructible can disappear in a blink of history's eye. And maybe, just maybe, one day far in the future, people will look at our world, our skyscrapers, our machines, and ask the same question we ask of Babylon, the Maya, and the Indus Valley. How could something so great simply vanish? Tonight, as we wander through the shadows of forgotten worlds, let's uncover the mysteries of three of the most astonishing civilizations that once ruled the earth and then disappeared almost without a trace. Picture the deserts of the Middle East thousands of years ago. At first glance, it may have seemed like an unforgiving place. Burning sun, endless sands, and rivers that often flooded without warning. Yet between the mighty Tigris and Euphrates rivers, humans built one of the first great centers of civilization. This land became known as Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, and it would give birth to empires whose names still echo today. At the heart of these empires was Babylon, a city so legendary that even after its fall, its stories were told for centuries. Imagine walking into Babylon during its golden age. Towering walls surrounded the city, so wide that chariots could race along the top. The Great Ishtar Gate shimmered with blue-glazed bricks, decorated with images of lions, bulls, and dragons, symbols of power and protection. Inside, markets overflowed with goods, spices from Arabia, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, cedar wood from Lebanon. It wasn't just a city, it was the beating heart of a global network of trade. And then, there were the Hanging Gardens. Ancient writers described them as terraces filled with exotic plants and flowing streams, a green paradise in the middle of the desert. Though historians still debate whether the gardens were real or simply a legend, the very idea captured the imagination of the world. For people of the time, Babylon was more than just a capital. It was a wonder, a symbol of human creativity and ambition. But Babylon was not built on beauty alone. It was also a city of laws, science, and faith. King Hammurabi created one of the earliest written law codes, carving rules of justice into stone so all could see. Astronomers studied the stars, charting constellations that would influence civilizations for centuries to come. Priests offered prayers to gods like Marduk, believing that divine favor protected their city from chaos. To Babylonians, their empire was eternal, blessed by the heavens. Yet history teaches us that no empire is untouchable. Despite its brilliance, Babylon, like so many before and after, fell. But why? The reasons remain tangled in the dust of time. Some historians believe the rivers that once gave life to the land also betrayed it. Over centuries, the Tigris and Euphrates shifted their courses, leaving farmland dry and forcing people to abandon once fertile lands. Others argue that Babylon's wealth and beauty made it a constant target for enemies. The Assyrians, Persians, and later the armies of Alexander the Great all clashed over this jewel of the desert. Every conquest weakened the city further, until its glory was reduced to whispers among ruins. But there is another possibility, one less visible but just as deadly: overuse of the land itself. Irrigation, while brilliant, led to the slow poisoning of farmland with salt. Harvests dwindled, populations shrank, and the mighty city became harder to sustain. By the time centuries had passed, Babylon was no longer the shining city of kings, but a quiet ruin. When Greek travelers visited, they spoke of shattered walls and empty streets where weeds grew between stones. The once eternal city was reduced to dust carried by the desert wind. And yet, Babylon's story didn't end in silence. Its legacy lived on in ideas that shaped future civilizations, written laws, mathematical concepts, astronomy, and architecture. Even today, when someone speaks of arrogance or hubris, they often refer to the Tower of Babel, a tale that reminds us of the thin line between ambition and downfall. As we think of Babylon, we are reminded of a lesson repeated throughout history. Greatness can be dazzling, but it is never guaranteed. The rivers that bring life can also bring ruin, and the walls that protect can eventually crumble. Babylon may have vanished, but in its fall, it left behind one of the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world. Now, let us leave the deserts of Mesopotamia and journey across oceans to the thick, green jungles of Central America. Here, hidden beneath layers of vines and trees, lie the remains of one of the most remarkable civilizations in human history, the Maya. The Maya people flourished for centuries, spreading across what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. They built towering stone pyramids, magnificent palaces, and ball courts where sacred games were played. If you were to walk through a Maya city during its golden age, you would hear the hum of life all around you. Artisans carving glyphs into stone, traders carrying goods across vast distances, and priests chanting to the gods in smoky temples. One of the most astonishing things about the Maya was their knowledge of the heavens. Their astronomers mapped the movements of planets and stars with a precision that rivals even modern science. They knew when eclipses would happen. They tracked Venus across the sky, and they created calendars so detailed that they extended thousands of years into the future. To the Maya, time was not just a line. It was a cycle, repeating endlessly, with every ending becoming a new beginning. But the Maya were not only scientists and builders, they were storytellers. Their glyphs, carved into stone and painted on codices, tell tales of gods, heroes, and kings. They believed their rulers were chosen by the gods themselves, connecting heaven and earth through rituals that could bring blessings or curses upon their people. Their art, their myths, their very way of life was filled with color, meaning, and mystery. And yet, for all their brilliance, something happened. By the year 900 CE, many of the great Maya cities, like Tikal, Copan, and Palenque, were abandoned. Their pyramids, once alive with music and prayer, stood silent. Jungle vines wrapped around them, covering their beauty in a green shroud of silence. To travelers centuries later, it seemed as though the Maya had simply vanished into thin air. Why did this happen? Historians have debated for generations, but the answers are not simple. Some believe the land itself betrayed them. The Maya relied heavily on farming, and evidence suggests a series of severe droughts may have struck the region. Without rain, crops failed, and famine would have spread across the empire. Others point to war. Competing Maya kingdoms may have fought each other so fiercely that they exhausted their strength, leaving cities weakened and vulnerable. Disease could have also played a part, carried along their trade routes. But perhaps it wasn't one single cause. It may have been many disasters striking together. A fragile balance was broken, and the great Maya cities could no longer survive. The people didn't disappear completely. Their descendants still live throughout Central America today, but the era of grand temples and mighty kings came to an end. Imagine what it must have felt like for those last generations of Maya, watching their cities crumble. Imagine standing on the steps of a great pyramid as the jungle slowly swallowed it, knowing that the world of your ancestors was slipping away. It is both haunting and heartbreaking, a reminder of how quickly glory can fade. And yet, just as with Babylon, the Maya left behind something eternal. Their ruins, their stories, and their knowledge continue to inspire. Every year, millions of visitors walk among the silent temples, staring up at stone carvings of gods and kings, trying to imagine what life was like when those walls still echoed with voices. The Maya show us that even when a civilization falls, it never truly disappears. Its spirit lingers in ruins, in culture, in memory, and whispers across the centuries for us to uncover. Now, let's travel across continents to South Asia, where one of the world's oldest civilizations quietly thrived more than 4,000 years ago, long before Rome or Athens. Even before the Maya built their pyramids, the people of the Indus Valley raised great cities along the banks of mighty rivers. Today we call them Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, names that still carry a sense of mystery. If you were to step into Mohenjo-daro at its height, you might be stunned by how advanced it was. Streets were laid out in neat grids, far more organized than many cities today. Homes had wells, bathrooms, and even early forms of drainage. Underground sewage systems carried waste away, something that wouldn't become common in Europe until thousands of years later. It wasn't just a city, it was a marvel of planning and community living. The people of the Indus Valley were skilled traders. Their goods traveled far and wide. Beads, pottery, and textiles found their way to Mesopotamia, showing just how connected they were to the wider ancient world. They also developed their own form of writing, carved into seals and tablets. To this day, no one has fully deciphered their script, which means we still don't know the stories, myths, or names of the kings who ruled them. It's as if they left us a puzzle with missing pieces. But perhaps the most striking thing about this civilization is its silence. Unlike other empires, the Indus Valley left behind no grand statues of kings, no towering temples of gods, no records of vast battles. Instead, their ruins suggest a society built more on cooperation than conquest. That alone makes them unique among ancient civilizations. And yet, around 1900 BCE, the cities began to fade. Street by street, house by house, they were abandoned. The once bustling markets grew empty. Wells dried up. The people who lived there vanished from their mighty urban centers. But here is the true mystery. Unlike Babylon or the Maya, there is no evidence of a great war, no signs of fire or destruction. It is as if the people simply walked away. Why? Historians still search for answers. Some believe the Indus River itself changed its course, leaving farmlands barren and forcing communities to move. Others point to a shift in climate, perhaps a long drought that made survival impossible in once thriving cities. Still others wonder if disease played a role, spreading quietly until families had no choice but to leave. One theory even suggests that natural disasters, like floods or earthquakes, disrupted their carefully balanced way of life. Imagine an earthquake shaking the very ground beneath Harappa, breaking wells, collapsing buildings, and scattering its people. Whatever the cause, the civilization that had flourished for centuries disappeared without leaving a clear trace. What makes this even more haunting is that their script remains undeciphered. With Babylon, we can read their laws. With the Maya, we can decode their calendars. But with the Indus Valley, their words remain locked away in symbols we still cannot fully understand. It is as if their voices were silenced, leaving us only with the skeleton of their cities to wonder about. Standing among the ruins today, you can almost hear the echoes of daily life. Children playing in the courtyards, traders calling out their goods, families gathering at wells. And then, nothing, just silence, broken only by the wind across the plains. The Indus Valley remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of history. a civilization that mastered urban planning, hygiene, and trade at a time when much of the world was still in villages, gone without explanation. Their story reminds us that sometimes history doesn't give us neat answers. Sometimes the greatest lesson is found in the questions that remain. As we leave behind the deserts of Babylon, the jungles of the Maya, and the plains of the Indus Valley, one question lingers like a shadow across history. Why do great civilizations fall? Why do shining cities, so full of life, music, and glory, end up as silent ruins buried in sand, vines, or dust? The truth is, there is no single answer. Empires fall for many reasons: war, famine, drought, corruption, greed, shifting rivers, even sheer chance. Sometimes it happens suddenly, with fire and invasion. Other times it happens slowly, like a candle flickering until it finally goes out. But one lesson echoes through every story: no empire, no matter how powerful, is eternal. And yet, the ruins left behind are not just warnings, they are also gifts. They remind us of the brilliance of human creativity. Babylon gave us laws written in stone, calendars aligned with the stars, and stories that still inspire today. The Maya showed us the beauty of time's cycles, the power of mathematics, and architecture that defied nature itself. The Indus Valley revealed a society built on planning, hygiene, and cooperation long before the modern world caught up. Each vanished empire leaves behind fragments of wisdom, like pearls scattered in the sands of time. We may not understand every piece, but together they remind us that even in collapse, humanity continues to pass its torch forward. There is also something humbling in their disappearance. When we walk through the ruins of Mohenjo-daro or stand beneath the shadow of a Maya pyramid, we are reminded of our own fragility. The skyscrapers we build today, the technology we rely on, the power we believe unshakable, all of it could one day be dust, just like the empires before us. 1,000 years from now, who will walk among our ruins? What stories will they tell about us? But do not mistake this thought for despair. There is comfort, too, for while cities fall, humanity endures. The Maya still live on in their descendants. The spirit of Babylon still breathes in the laws, myths, and mathematics we use. The Indus Valley may be gone, but their urban genius lives on in how we design our own cities. Civilizations may crumble, but their ideas ripple across generations, shaping worlds they never dreamed of. So as you drift into sleep tonight, imagine the ruins not just as broken stones, but as voices calling out to you. Voices that say, build, but build wisely. Create, but respect nature. Lead, but remember your people. And above all, know that greatness is not measured in how long an empire lasts, but in what it leaves behind for those who come after. That is the true mystery of vanished empires. They are not simply stories of endings. They are reminders that endings are also beginnings. That even in collapse, something new can grow. Just as rivers change their course, jungles swallow stone, and deserts shift their sands, so too does humanity move forward, carrying the lessons of the past into the promise of tomorrow. So tonight, as you close your eyes, let the ruins of Babylon, the temples of the Maya, and the streets of the Indus Valley walk with you into your dreams. Let their mysteries remind you that life is fleeting, but stories are eternal. Empires may vanish, but history, like the stars above us, always shines on. And so, as the echoes of Babylon's walls, the Maya's temples, and the Indus Valley streets fade into silence, their stories remind us that history is never truly lost. It only waits to be told again. If this journey through vanished empires sparked your imagination, don't let the story end here. Hit that like button to let us know you enjoyed the adventure. Subscribe to join us on more journeys through time, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the next story waiting in the ruins of history. Until then, sleep well, dream deep, and remember, the past is always closer than it seems.